I'm just going to get my gear up here, work out that it's all working, and that the live stream is actually live, and so I can take your questions. And I hope that you can hear me, because I haven't been... There we go. Let's do the microphone now. Give myself just enough leeway here. Move that in just ever so slightly. Ruin the angle. Okay. Calte, how you going, mate? Good to see you. Look, Cabio joined, Lockie, Nick Huzek, and 3 others. Good to see you all. Thanks for tuning in. It's another live stream. It's the Sunday live. And a few things I want to touch on tonight. I'm relying on this little battery pack here to... isn't it funny? I don't know anyone now who... Well, maybe you might prove me wrong in the comments. But I... You distract me already. Lockie says, button up woo, looking fancy, no SMWS or Lefroy t-shirts. Yeah, no, I was at an event earlier this afternoon, so I'm still wearing the same shirt. So I do own shirts. If you've been to any of my events, you'll often see I'm wearing a suit. But if I'm broadcasting out of my office, I'm often wearing a t-shirt. I don't really dress up for live streams, no offense. I like the content to speak for itself rather than the dress code. So there you go. So yeah, I got sidetracked. I'm going back into my sidetrack of my sidetrack. I don't know anyone who doesn't have these battery packs anymore, honestly. I mean, just these, this is a little one. It's a tiny little sort of hand-sized one, this one. It's just a 4400 milliamp one. And it's, just to keep your phones running these days is it's a lot of work. And this one is one of those silly ones that has a light built in, so you can see that I can blind you nice and clearly there. So I'm going to pour myself a dram because I'm talking too much and I haven't had a chance to actually taste anything yet. So there we go. I'm going to pour a little bit of that. I'll tell you what that is in a bit. So a couple of things I want to touch on. And first of all is a special shout out to an old friend, colleague, absolute whiskey legend who's just finished up his last week ever at Whiskey and Almond. So a big shout out on the live stream tonight to James Fairley, the bar manager at Whiskey and Almond, who's been there for the last 6 years, manning the bar there, manning the team, looking after downstairs. He's been responsible for a whole number of projects. He's been responsible for helping design and create the Melbourne Whiskey Room upstairs. He's just been a trailblazer and a true gentleman and a lovely person to hang out with. So James, if you get a chance, if you're watching, and I know sometimes you do, this is a big shout out to you and a big slungebar to you for all your fantastic work at Whiskey and Almond, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavours. And I know you've moved a bit out of Melbourne at the moment, so you've got a few things on the boil, and which I won't announce here, but I might have a chance to announce, I guess, maybe later down the track once it's all a bit more firmed up. But all the best, mate, and this is a slungebar for you. So the second thing I want to touch on tonight. I was really intrigued earlier today. I was doing a bit of light research on the Myers-Briggs personality test. Has anyone here done that test? Wait, I'm going to nose this. Wait, I'm going to enjoy this. Ooh, lovely. Those who follow me on Facebook would have seen that I actually hosted an event the other night in out near Liverpool, Cabramatta Way, at the place called the Warwick, in the library bar with the Whiskey Circle team. I put it up on the story before. Really great group to connect with, and they've got a great mission for bringing people together, creating a whiskey group out in the west there, which is just great for them. And I think it's an awesome idea. I've talked about this before on the live stream a couple of times now about creating your own whiskey group, and it's one that I thoroughly encourage. And I went along just to host 3 whiskey with them. So if you've got your own whiskey group and you want the society to host something with you, hit me up. Because we do private events, private and corporate tastings. I prefer to do whiskey clubs and private tastings rather than corporate gigs a lot of the time. But you do get the lovely corporate one from time and again. But really, the private ones for whiskey clubs, for groups of members who want something personalised to their needs in their home or office is always lovely. Or if they book out a bar like these guys did. Sorry, I touched on personality tests, and I'm already getting lots of flack on here. There are so many personality tests, most are BS. Okay, Cal, I don't know enough about them. This is why I was kind of doing some research on them. The Myers-Briggs one seems pretty well researched, but some of the questions might be a bit broad. Is the Myers-Briggs the cultural awareness one or the analytical drive one? I think it's the second one, Benoit. I think it's sort of the... I'd have to go back to my notes because I was looking at it quite earlier on today before this event I had. But it's sort of, whether you're intuitive or you're a thinker or you're a judger or all those kind of things. You're an ISTP. I'm going to write that down. Whiskey and drinkers arena. I'm going to write that down because I'm love to learn what people are. And I won't be able to. I'm going to keep a record here. Not a record. That sounds. But I want to look up what that means. I'm going to look up what that means because I haven't done mine yet. I haven't done my Myers-Briggs, but I want to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'll send you my result later, Irina. MBTI is extrovert, introvert, sending, intuitive, thinking, feeling, judging, perceiving. There you go. Thank you, Nick Husek. Yes, you know what I'm talking about here. Admon, good to see you. Hillwood, good to see you. Oh. I'm actually having tasted that first whiskey that we did the other night with the Whiskey Circle. It's a 12.20. It's called Martini in a Trench Coat. Hold the label up for you there. It's very much in the spicy and sweet flavour profile and actually very deserving of being in that flavour profile actually. 12.20 Martini in a Trench Coat. I've added a few drops of water. It actually does really work well with water, this one. Irina, you were there the other night. You'll remember this one. So yes, I'm going to enjoy that. And I wanted to ask, the reason why I was actually looking at personality tests is for two reasons. One, the Society back in 2016 held a series of whiskey tastings around the country, actually, and they're all free for members, which were about what flavour profile suits your personality sort of testing thing. And the results were posted in the UK at some point later on, and it was quite fascinating to see the science that went in behind it. And it made me think, are there flavour profiles or spirit flavours that match certain personalities? Because I'm often amazed. Here's an example of what I mean on a broader scale. I'm hosting an event for a group of members or for newcomers, for whoever it is, newcomers to whiskey, old school members, whatever it is. I'm hosting an event, and I often think that a whiskey like this one, the 12.20, will be less received, if that makes sense. They'll see it as an 8-year-old first fill. For me, I love that kind of whiskey, but it's like they'll see it and they go, yeah, it's good, but the third whiskey in the lineup might be like, or fourth whiskey in the lineup might be a 25-year-old sherried single cask. And I anticipate most people will love that sort of like rich old sherry and spice. Whereas actually I'm often surprised at my own events about what people end up tending towards, which really kind of blows my mind about how and what kind of flavour profiles people intend towards when it comes to whiskey. And I was thinking about how that affects the sort of selection process for when people are buying whiskey. So if you are in the fortunate opportunity to buy off tasting rather than buying just blind off a bottle shop shelf, then you often find that it's quite different to what you think you'll like. And a lot of marketing comes into play here, of course, a lot of sort of sensory analysis and how people perceive different spirits and how people perceive different flavours comes into play. And I wondered how much of a personality trait on either a tasted or an untasted whiskey affects your purchase or affects what you think of a whiskey. And that's like, we're talking like deep sort of, like, almost retail psychology or personality analysis alongside whiskey enjoyment. And I'm not really enough versed in that enough to really sort of have a steadfast opinion either way. But it's one that actually, it sort of blows my mind a bit about how and when and what that kind of like how and when and what that works. So that sort of really plays into how those personality tests might be able to work in the context of using flavour. And and some of the questions, obviously not some, but most of the questions would be around spice, around food, around what you like in a whiskey and what you like in a food and how that connects up with each other. And you might be one of the people that thinks they love their big, rich, port casks that are saturated spirit with port cask or saturated with sherry cask or really rich wine casks, etc. And you might think you love that kind of like flavor profile, but then you suddenly realize, oh, actually, I like this one instead. And that could just be a case of your personality and your flavor. Well, I mean, your palate changes over time anyway, but so does your personality, I guess. Ooh, I don't know. Actually, I'm gonna withdraw that until further. But I think it does. But it's sort of like how you react to flavor. Anyway, I'm going to try and research more about this. But if Dr. Akers is watching, or if he gets the chance to watch it later, that's one for you as well, Doctor. We've got to remember Dr. Akers. If you've probably seen him in the stream, if you're a regular viewer, Dr. Robert Akers. He's a scientist over at Monash University, and he's a lovely bloke, and and lovely member, and he likes to do these kind of experiments and mess around with things. One could even call him a mad scientist. Some of the comments coming in. What if the person is an extrovert or introvert, and how they think and feel that affects the nose and palate is the same thing as how colours and words make you feel, like the colour blue and the word. You know what? Phases of the palate. Basic. I'm going to come back into that one for a second. He's drinking rare whiskey tonight. Oh, good on him. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is some really good comments coming in, guys. So Cal, you're sort of touching on something there, which is often referred to as what's the word for it? There's a word where colours and sounds match up. Ends in ology, of course. It ends in anyway. I used to be fascinated by that through uni, and was where certain colours remind you, certain sounds and pitches in the musical scale remind you. If anyone can look that up for me whilst I'm doing the live, certain pitch centres remind you of and certain tonal colours remind you of certain colour. So like it was like G major is orange, and A flat major is purple, and B major is red, or whatever it was. If anyone wants to look them up. Synesthesia. Thank you. Sorry, that was the word, not ology. I kept trying to focus on the ology. Thank you, Nick. Synesthesia is exactly the right word. So synesthesia is where some people are afflicted with it, I should say. I won't say blessed or cursed. It's just they have that as an affliction, one that they are able to draw upon, where certain tonal centers and certain scalic forms will actually invoke different colors. Maybe that could be the same with whiskey. Maybe it could be the same with our palate. Not just whiskey. Sorry, that's a bit of a direct. That's a bit too direct almost. You could say it almost different flavors and different emotions that run with how we perceive flavor and how we interpret and enjoy or disagree with. And that for me is one that I don't think is even close to being explored enough, and one that I'd like to look at properly next year with members. Maybe some sort of experimental tasting in each city. Exploring how it was almost like a flavor behavior, like from 2016, but maybe just drilled down a little bit more on agreeableness and disagreeableness of flavor based on personality type. And we could all do personality types in the room and then taste different whiskies that might pair with what you like and what you don't. It might get a bit nerdy. I understand it. Sort of, some people find those kind of tastings a bit like sort of like way too sciencey, but sometimes they're a lot of fun. And it's a wide range of tastings that we do at the society, as you know, like from Christmas parties coming up later this week coming up to to scientific experiments, which could be a lot of fun. Psychology. Do you have so some of the questions coming in? Wixie and Drinky says, I've thought of that too, but I wonder if it's more cultural than Myers-Briggs personality type. It could be cultural. It could be cultural, Irina. I'm not really sure. That's why I'd like to explore it. It could be cultural, but it might be personality type. So anyway, psychology is the study of the cool, but yes, synesthesia is the correct term as well. I know my personality can be a little YOLO/flippant, so my palate interests change every second night, whereas some will have a go-to or an Old Faithful whiskey. You know what? That's a really good point, Irina, because I know exactly what you're saying by that. In that, for me, my flavor profile generally moves around a fair bit, especially in someone like a role like I have. And sometimes whiskeys like this are exactly what I'm after, but other times it'll be really, like peated whiskies or really sherried whiskies or really young whiskies, old whiskies, all sorts of different things, and even other spirits. Of course, when I'm in the mood for a rum, I'm in the mood for a gin, I'm in the mood for I won't say vodka because I don't often drink vodka, I'll be honest, but when I'm in the mood for a cognac, an Armagnac, a Calvados, and your mood, of course, it's not so much YOLO/flippant. It's more sort of, I get what you're saying, but it's more about finding the how your mood. Well, mood is one that I've talked about before, about how we're often focusing on nose, palate, and finish of a whiskey, but we're not often focusing on our mood and what we're in the mood to drink, and that obviously is a huge element. So maybe instead of delving into the science of it with like personality types of tasting, it could be a mood-based tasting, and exploring maybe like those. I remember reading once about Dadaism and about those cinemas from the 1920s and 30s where they'd put itching powder on the seats and anyway, get everyone in a bad mood. There you go. Find a bad mood whiskey. I don't know what that would be. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Maybe a really, really fainty young whiskey that's been drawn out of the cask about 5 years too early. Anyway, no comment about that. Chapo1 joined. Good to see him. At Music joined. Beer on a hot summer's days relates to mood and environment. Yeah, look, Cal, you know me. I love a good beer. I'm especially a big fan. I've said this before to friends of mine. I'm a huge fan of high proof spirits, but mid strength beers actually. I like my high proof beers as well. Don't get me wrong. If I get the opportunity to taste 7, 8, 9, 10% alcohol beers, often they're big juicy NIPAs or IPAs or porters or stouts. I like that as well. But there's a time and place for those, of course, and they're quite a meal in a can often, especially a pint-sized can. But for me, I love the idea of doing. I love mid-strength beers because you can track them easier. They're cold, refreshing. They don't wipe you out. If it's a hot day, I can't really do one of those 7-point-something% IPAs that are 500 and something ml cans that you feel like just dizzy and wiped out afterwards. Even just one can. I like to have a few cans of beer. Why not? You have some great ideas for champs. Yes, indeed. Champs. What about those people who say they dislike something just because? What sort of personality would that represent? Basic chocolates. You know what? That's a really good point. And you also mentioned before about phases of the palate and how your palate changes over time. This is a very real thing and something that we should talk about at some point in a more detailed live with a discussion with you guys. Your palate changes over time. It absolutely does. Like what you enjoy now versus what if what you enjoyed when you were 13 versus what you enjoyed when you were 8 years old versus what you enjoyed when you're 30 years old changes dramatically, just as your appreciation and training of your palate changes over time as well. And most of them for the better. I remember as a kid I hated mushrooms, you can't stand the things, I also didn't like onion. But now as an adult, I'm like, onion is the base of a good dish and mushrooms could be on anything almost. So, and it's the same in spirit. It's like, I'll be honest, actually, here's one for you. This is almost the opposite of many whiskey drinkers. I consider myself a little bit unique in that way. I actually used to love peated, like big peated whiskies a lot more. I love lightly peated whiskey at the moment and have done for a couple of years now. Things like our Ardmores, so the 66s, the 10s, and things like that, and some of the 29s, love them to bits. But if I see heavily peated, for me, I get that people love that stuff. For me, it's often a little bit too much, and you lose some of the subtlety of the malt and the spirit hiding behind just peat. And it's the same for beer as well. It's like those beers that are just like hops. These massive IPAs where it's just hops. You lose that malt balance. So hops is to beer what peat is to spirit. There you go. That's my hot take. It's not really even a hot take. So people who say just because, well, they don't like it. They dislike something just because. I think that's just laziness. Basic chocolates. I think that's just laziness of not understanding how to articulate, or not laziness, but not understanding how to articulate what they don't like about it. And so if you drill down a bit on that, you can often find what it is. It's often one of the food groups or one of the flavor profiles. It might be something like a ginger note or a sour note or a woody note they don't like or something. Like sherry haters. Yeah, I'm not a sherry hater. No, I find a lot of sherried whiskey isn't to my liking, but I love a good sherried whiskey. Don't get me wrong. I do like claiming cask strength whiskey as the perfect introvert's drink. Could sit for hours with a book, whereas a bubbly is a social drink for me. Yes. There you go. That's a mood, time, and place kind of definition there, Irina. That's kind of like how and cask strength can be quite introverted, I guess. But I would consider myself quite an extrovert. I probably wouldn't be doing videos every day if I was an introvert and putting myself out there. But I consider myself a bit of an extrovert in that sense, and that's why I like cask strength whiskey and I like conversation. And that's what I don't think our events are introverted at all. I wouldn't ever call them that. They're sort of like they're not extroverted either. They're a place for gathering. They're a place for bringing people together, which is kind of like that's I guess extrovert-ish. I guess I don't really know. Palate can change on experience and weather conditions. Same things as kids hate the taste of beer and alcohol, but as soon as they're 16, they love it. Do they love it when they're 16 to 18, Cal, or is peer pressure say that they enjoy it? That's a really good point, though, Cal, and thanks for bringing that up. How and when you enjoy it can really affect it, and your age, of course, your palate changes over time with the spirit, and spirit can change over time, of course, with your enjoyment of which changes, and yeah, I think that's a given, but maybe I don't know many 16, 17, 18-year-olds who enjoy cask strength whiskey, that's for sure, and they might enjoy some sweet breezes and other premixed drinks and goon bags and whatever else, or what are those hard ciders now? I think they've moved on to hard ciders. I don't know, but it's gotten positively like creamed corn now almost. Fascinating distillery 12. It's one of those distilleries that Speyside Distillery 12, now owned by Brown-Forman Group. They bought them along with Glendronach and Glenglassaugh. It's the other one. I won't say the name. Come on, the code gives enough away. But 12.20 is just the 20th cask we've ever seen, and it's actually really exciting to taste something that is from a distillery that mostly filled into refill casks for pretty much all of their spirit, and then they re-racked a lot of it themselves for their own single cask range over the last few years, but. And other sort of wacky releases they've done, like port cask finishes and things, but to get a first fill bourbon barrel even just for 8 years that's probably there wouldn't have been too much first fill stuff happening at that distillery before them. It's called cost cutting, but that's all right. I mean it just provides a ample base for a lot of blenders at the time, and now it's great to see a little bit more single malt coming out of, including single casks. Cal asks, have you ever had an introverted event or table where you had to work and fight to get a response? Cal, almost every event, almost every single event I do, absolutely, and you'll see it yourself if you pay attention to these things. Even if you remember, Cal, at the Kelvin Club for the gathering in Melbourne, I know you were there. Some tables, that were asking a lot of questions, and they love throwing them at me, and they love getting involved. And even if I'm walking around the room, it's sort of like, some tables just want to sit and enjoy their drams and learn a little bit about it, but didn't want to get too involved. They just want to sit back and be yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm an extrovert, but at the same time, the introverted part of me is if I'm going out, and if I was to go somewhere like the circus or a magic show or something, which I don't go to very often, but if I was going to, especially those ones, audience participation, where they pick you out of the audience to do something as part of the show. No, thank you. No. I'm not going to I don't want to end up on YouTube as some ridicule of, someone got it wrong and whatever. I'm happy to be on YouTube as these kind of videos instead. Lou Weasel, Coin Shooter 74, good to see you. I'm just about to finish up. Oh, John McShane, I didn't see you joined up, John. I don't know if you're still in the stream, but good to see you, mate. For those who don't know, John McShane is our global brand ambassador for the SMWS. Total legend. 20 years old and I only drink cask strength because it's rich and more flavours. When I drink 42 to 48, I can taste the difference in the alcohol note more than the rich and single flavour. Cal, you're explaining exactly what I love about cask strength. It's full flavoured. It doesn't pull any punches. You're not trying to, you don't have to do anything with it to try and get much out of it. You drink a whiskey that's at 40 to 43% these days, it's at that proof for tax reasons, not taste. That's one thing I like to remind people. And if you're tasting something that's for taste reasons and it's a cask strength, all those full flavours haven't been diluted down. This is one of the basic facts of good cask strength whiskey, like what we do at the Society. The back three, and yeah, Dr. and Morsdale, but I get now is think Sydney and Melbourne will be introverted or introverted on top of your head. I don't think there's much difference between Sydney and Melbourne when it comes to introvert-extrovert characteristics, Cal, but It's a good question. I don't think there's any difference though. I think it's more to do with room and setup and even the pre-drinks and everything, and just getting people into the fashion of it. But you can't really sort of beat some of the personality traits, which is sort of my point. And I don't intend to either. Like, if you're an introvert and you want to come to our events and you enjoy just sitting and enjoying a dram, come along, please. It's not, you don't have to be, asking questions and, shouting out tasting notes. We have some members that do that, but it doesn't happen that often. That's all from me tonight. I really appreciate you tuning in for the last 25 minutes and sharing a dram with me. If you hope you had a dram in your hand, I didn't even get a chance to ask. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this 12.20. It's a lovely drop, this one. And I hope to see you all at our events coming up. There are still tickets available for Sydney and Melbourne, which you'll see me both at. And, of course, you've got Adelaide on the 13th. You've got Brisbane, I think is tomorrow night. I think it is. I'm not doing Brisbane. That's Scott, and I think it's sold out. I'm pretty sure it's sold out. And Canberra was last week. But there's events coming up all around. Hobart, I'm sorry, there's just nothing in the pipe just yet. There's been some shuffles with our partner bar, and they've been moving around a bit, and they've had a bit of a restaffing, if you like. So there's a few things in the works there, but we're going to work closely with them on building something up, especially moving into next year. So stay tuned. I do apologise in advance. Can't wait to shout out the tasting list at the next event. Lockie, you'd be surprised. You'll find some members, including our good mutual friend Tony Chapman, who's had years of shouting out tasting notes of his own at the table, and I love it. I appreciate it. It's such an experience because he's often bang on the money as well. He's got a great palate, Tony. So that's one a shout out for Chapo there. Have a great weekend. What's left of it? It's only a few hours, and I'll see you all possibly tomorrow night. I hope so, because it might be Monday rant time. Okay, cheers, and have a good night. Cheers.